Have you ever noticed how some people walk through crisis without being consumed by it? They're not the smartest, not the loudest, not the most connected, but something about them feels solid, still, unshakable. It's not luck, it's not talent, it's not timing, it's control. Control over what they say, control over how they think, control over how they feel, and where they place their energy, control over how they spend their time, their money, their attention. Because if you don't control these things, they will quietly start controlling you. Not with chaos, but with repetition, with distraction, with small compromises. Until one day, you look up and don't recognize the man steering your life anymore. And if you stay through this video, you won't just see where that shift happened. You'll know how to take the wheel back. We'll walk through 4 disciplines that rebuild inner command. Control of your words, your thoughts, your emotional state, and your finances, not to make you perfect, but to make you anchored, clear, untouchable. Most men never stop to ask, who's really in charge, me or my impulses? They don't realize the real battle isn't out there, it's in here. And it's not a fight of intelligence, it's a fight for governance. If something in this is speaking to the part of you that's been silent for too long, drop a comment below with 2 words. I'm ready. Not for the algorithm, but for yourself. And if you want to keep walking this path, with content designed for men rebuilding from the inside out, subscribe now, not for entertainment, but for alignment. Let's begin. Principle 1. Control your mouth. Words shape reality. There was a moment, years ago, in a tense boardroom meeting that still echoes in the memory of every executive who sat at that long mahogany table. A junior VP had just delivered a disastrous quarterly report. Profits had plummeted. A key client was gone. Everyone was waiting for the CEO's reaction, waiting for the storm, the raised voice, the blame. But instead, the CEO leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and said 6 words. Let's talk about what's next. No yelling, no blame, no ego, just direction. That man didn't just lead the company through the storm, he became a legend for how he spoke during it. And not because he had the perfect words, but because he understood one thing that separates real leaders from those who just hold titles. Your words create the temperature of every room you walk into. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius reminds himself, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. But it's not just your thoughts, it's the words you speak. Because words aren't neutral. They shape, they fuel, they plant, or they burn. And for leaders, words are weapons or wounds, tools or traps. Most people don't realize they are narrating their downfall in real time. This market is impossible. No one's buying. My team doesn't listen. They say these things casually, daily, unaware that every word is like writing code into the operating system of their mind and their organization. A careless sentence can unravel morale. A cynical joke can kill vision. A frustrated rant, especially from the top, can trigger doubt that takes months to repair. Your words create culture, and culture either lifts a company or buries it. You think you're just venting, but to those around you, you're casting shadows. You think you're being realistic, but realism spoken without wisdom often becomes a dressed-up form of fear. The Stoics didn't advocate silence for the sake of secrecy. They believed in measured speech because they understood power. Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue, said Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, because words, once released, can't be taken back. They echo, they compound, they shape perceptions long after the meeting ends. Leadership begins where the impulse to react ends, especially in speech. In business, it's easy to conflate verbal dominance with leadership. Cutting people off, speaking first, using big words to sound smart. But none of that earns lasting respect. It might intimidate. It might temporarily silence a room. But the kind of leadership that builds loyalty, longevity, and legacy is the kind that chooses clarity over cleverness, precision over volume, intent over impulse. Let me be clear, this isn't about being polite, it's about being deliberate. When you speak, people don't just hear your words, they feel your intention. Are you calming the room or igniting fear? Are you leading the conversation or reacting to it? Do your words make people lean in or armor up? Control your mouth and you control the narrative, not just publicly, but privately in the minds of your people. This is especially critical when pressure is high, when uncertainty looms. Because when the storm hits, your voice becomes a lighthouse or a weapon. And this isn't just about others. It's about the language you use with yourself. Self-talk isn't harmless. It's habit-forming. Because when your self-talk becomes your daily script, it becomes your identity. Every morning you look in the mirror and repeat the same lines. I'm behind. They're ahead. It's too late. You're not just thinking those thoughts, you're rehearsing your own defeat. It's not just venting, it's programming. One careless phrase you whisper to yourself, I always mess this up, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And soon, your actions begin to obey the narrative you've written. That's why Marcus didn't just train his decisions, he trained his internal voice. Contrast that with the founder who exploded at his team over a missed deadline. He wasn't wrong, but his reaction poisoned the room. The team withdrew, trust eroded. And over the next 6 months, 2 top performers left, not because of the work, but because of the words. The company didn't collapse from a lack of talent. It collapsed from a lack of containment. Words became weapons, and the wounds ran deep. So how do you begin to control the mouth? First, slow down. The faster you speak, the more likely you are to react instead of respond. The Stoics practiced pausing. You should too. Second, filter for purpose. Before speaking, ask, is this true? Is it helpful? Is it necessary now? Not every thought deserves airtime. Third, speak in direction, not just description. Anyone can describe the problem, but leaders declare the path forward, even when it's foggy. You don't need to talk more to lead more. You need to speak better, less noise, more signal. Because in the end, your company, your family, your life, they don't rise based on how much you talk. They rise based on what your words build, on what they protect, on what they ignite. So speak like it matters, because it does. Speak less, mean more, lead with language. Principle 2, control your mind, make logic the CEO. In 2008, while most CEOs were scrambling for short-term survival, Howard Schultz did the unthinkable. He shut down 7,100 Starbucks stores. All of them. For 3 hours. Not for renovations. Not because the stock price was falling, though it was, but to retrain every barista in the US on how to make a perfect espresso. The media called it reckless. Investors panicked. But Schultz wasn't reacting to noise. He wasn't chasing quarterly numbers or trying to appease headlines. He was thinking, long-term, clearly, stoically. He wrote, "This is not about cost. It's about trust." That's what happens when logic, not panic, sits at the head of the table. That's what happens when a leader learns to control his mind. Let's be honest, most people don't lose control in business because of markets or competitors. They lose control because they haven't built an inner system strong enough to override the noise. Their thoughts run the show. Their fears write the emails. Their ego drives the decisions, and when the pressure rises, they collapse into reaction. Marcus Aurelius ruled during wars, plagues, and betrayal. Yet his writings never sound chaotic. Why? Because his mind was trained, disciplined. "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind," he wrote. "Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts." You may not rule an empire, but you are the emperor of your own mind. And if you don't step into that role consciously, someone or something else will. How many times have you acted from fear, thinking it was intuition? How many deals did you walk away from not because it was wrong, but because your thoughts convinced you that you weren't ready, not enough, or doomed to fail? Thoughts are not facts. They are suggestions. Most are garbage. Few are gold. The difference is knowing which ones deserve your attention and which ones should be quietly dismissed. And the most dangerous thoughts, the ones that feel familiar, not loud, not dramatic, just subtle. I'm behind. They're better. If I slow down, I'll fall apart. These aren't facts. They're mental residue. They build slowly, invisibly, like digital tabs left open in the background, eating up bandwidth, draining clarity, until one day your thinking lags, your vision blurs, and you don't know why. That's the hidden tax of an untrained mind. Decision fatigue born from thought clutter. That's what makes a Stoic leader dangerous. Not emotional immunity, but emotional governance. The ability to listen to fear without obeying it. To hear self-doubt without inviting it in. To hold the chaos but not let it touch the core. Let's go back to Schultz. Starbucks was bleeding. Competitors were circling. Analysts wanted layoffs and aggressive expansion. Instead, he slowed down. He pulled stores back. He simplified the menu. He personally visited hundreds of locations. It wasn't glamorous, but it was deliberate, grounded, reasoned. When logic leads, noise fades, options appear, and something else rises, calm confidence. But controlling your mind isn't just about big moves. It's about how you respond to the micro moments. The unkind email, the social media comment, the client who ghosts you. These moments don't break you because of what happens. They break you because of how much thought you give them. If every little trigger shifts your trajectory, you're not leading, you're leaking. You're letting random noise rewrite your clarity. So how do you train a mind like Schultz, like Marcus, like a Stoic? Step 1. Cultivate mental silence. You can't think clearly if you never stop consuming. Block the noise. Sit with your own mind long enough to hear the truth beneath the tension. Step 2. Interrogate your thoughts. Not every thought deserves a meeting. Ask, is this useful? Is it grounded in evidence or emotion? Would I follow this advice if it came from someone else? Step 3. Visualize under pressure. Before the storm hits, imagine it. Picture the failure, the criticism, the hard call. See yourself holding the frame. Then rehearse your response, not as fantasy, but as preparation. This is what Stoicism demands. Not denial of emotion, but mastery through reason. Emotions knock. Logic answers. Logic decides. And here's what most leaders forget. Your mind doesn't just affect your decisions, it affects your face, your tone, your body language. If your thoughts are frantic, people feel it, whether they understand it or not. You become unstable, unpredictable. But when you choose reason, you send a message, silent but unmistakable. I'm in command. Even now, you are the founder, the father, the fulcrum. If your mind is chaotic, your company will be. If your thinking is rushed, your vision will blur. But if you build the habit of stepping back, slowing down, choosing reason, you become unshakable. The next time the pressure builds, when the board is waiting, the numbers disappoint, or the inbox screams, pause, and ask yourself, if fear didn't speak first, what would reason say? Then listen. Not to your insecurity, not to the urge to act fast just to feel in control, but to that quiet, steady voice that's been there all along. The one that doesn't panic, the one that leads, the one that always knew logic was meant to sit at the head of the table. Make logic the CEO. And everything else, clarity, trust, success, will follow its lead. Principle 3. Control your mood. Lead from your inner state. There's a photo of Angela Merkel, captured during the height of the European migrant crisis in 2015. The world was in disarray. Borders were collapsing. Political careers were imploding. Angry crowds filled the streets. Her approval ratings were plummeting, and yet there she stood, face calm, hands folded in her signature diamond shape, surrounded by chaos but unmoved by it. She didn't shout, she didn't plead, she didn't panic. She just kept showing up, quiet, consistent, and composed. Not because she had all the answers, but because she understood something every great leader eventually learns. You don't lead with force. You lead with presence. And that presence begins with your inner state. In leadership, we talk endlessly about strategy, vision, execution, but no one talks about the invisible force that moves the room before a single word is spoken: mood. If you walk in anxious, your team feels it before you speak. If you're agitated, they brace. If you're grounded, they exhale. Your mood is not private. It is the weather system the whole organization must operate under. And in times of crisis, that energy either steadies the ship or capsizes it. Marcus Aurelius ruled during plague, war, and betrayal, but his meditations are not frantic. They're calm, deliberate, composed. Why? Because he knew he couldn't control events, but he could govern himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he wrote. Realize this, and you will find strength. That wasn't motivational fluff, it was operational philosophy. Modern science confirms what the Stoics intuited. When your mood spins, your physiology follows. Cortisol spikes, breathing shortens, your nervous system enters fight or flight. But here's what most leaders forget. Everyone around you mirrors that. People don't follow logic, they follow energy. Your tone, your tension, your pacing. If you're chaotic, they adapt by retreating, resisting, or reacting. Emotional leadership is not a concept, it's chemistry. I once worked with a founder who stormed into a Monday morning meeting after a bad client call. He didn't yell, but his body did. Shoulders tight, tone clipped, words rushed. Within 20 minutes, 3 departments were derailed. People went defensive, ideas dried up, decisions were postponed, the mood lingered for days. All because of one unprocessed emotion leaking into everyone else's performance. That's not leadership, that's emotional contagion. And it's costing businesses more than any missed KPI. Contrast that with the leader who walks into chaos and somehow lowers the temperature. They speak slowly, they acknowledge tension, but their presence says, "I'm not shaken, let's move." That kind of presence isn't talent, it's trained, built, earned, through repeated practice, through inner governance. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop broadcasting. It means you separate your mood from your message. You don't fake it, you filter it. You acknowledge the storm, but you don't bring the lightning into the room. You lead not from reaction, but from regulation. So how do you train this state? First, track it. Before the day begins, before the emails, the texts, the headlines, check your own weather. Ask, what am I feeling? Why? Is it useful? You can't manage what you don't measure. Second, pause the spill. If you're frustrated, don't lead with it. Walk. Write. Breathe. Talk to a wall if you have to, but don't enter the room until you're leading from center. People can sense when you're bleeding emotion you haven't processed. They may not say it, but they'll respond with silence, withdrawal, or fear. Not because they're weak, but because they're absorbing what you haven't contained. Third, anchor your identity deeper than emotion. You are not your frustration. You are not your fatigue. You are not your mood. Those are data points, not definitions. You are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the tone, you don't reflect it. The Stoics knew that mood was a battlefield. Seneca warned that anger is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Epictetus taught that emotions are judgments, reflexes of thought, not truth, but they also taught that we are not slaves to them. We can train our state, we can lead from stillness. So the next time you walk into that boardroom, that living room, that crisis, ask yourself, What's the weather inside me right now? And is that what I want others to feel? Then lead from clarity, not performance, not denial, clarity. Let your presence speak before your voice does. Let your calm become contagious. Let your stillness become the gravity others orbit around. Because in a world of volatility, the calmest one in the room doesn't just survive. He leads. He attracts trust. He anchors others when the wind rips the sails off the boat. And over time, he becomes something more than a manager, more than a strategist. He becomes the one they count on, not for answers, but for atmosphere. The storm may be loud, but your presence? That's what determines who stays, who folds, and who follows. Principle 4, control your money, financial power, is freedom. Have you ever looked rich but felt poor? Not in dollars. In control. The house was big, the income was high. But deep down, you knew you were one delayed payment away from spiraling, one unexpected tax bill away from making decisions you'd regret, one soft quarter away from losing leverage in your own company. That's not freedom, that's financial dependence, dressed in expensive clothes. And this is the quiet truth about most high-earning men. They don't go broke from a lack of money. They go broke from a lack of clarity. The more they earn, the less they watch. The more they accumulate, the less they control. And slowly, without realizing it, they trade their freedom for friction. They build a life that looks successful, but it runs on fumes. Seneca warned us centuries ago, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The Stoics understood long before modern finance that true wealth isn't about what you make, it's about what you manage. It's not net worth, it's not income, it's margin. Margin gives you space. Margin gives you calm. Margin gives you the power to say no, to walk away, to hold the line when others are collapsing under pressure. Without it, you are not in control. You are merely reacting. Expensively. The problem isn't just ignorance, it's emotion. The man who can't sit still buys to feel progress. The one who's insecure spends to signal success. I once knew a founder who bought a Tesla the week after laying off 5 employees. He said he deserved something good after the hard decision. What he bought wasn't a car, it was emotional anesthesia, and it cost him more than the payment. It cost him the moral trust of his team. We don't lose control of money because of logic. We lose it because of feeling. Retail therapy, revenge spending, status chasing. I worked hard. I earned this. Maybe. But did the purchase build your freedom or just feed your ego? Did it serve your future or sedate your frustration? And the impact isn't just personal, it's organizational. When the leader lives stretched, so does the company. When your runway is tight, your thinking shrinks. You become short-term. You say yes to clients you shouldn't. You delay hard conversations about overhead. You build with panic baked into your spreadsheets. That's not strategy. That's survival with a suit on. Financial power, real power, starts with ownership, not just of assets, but of attention, of behavior, of the philosophy behind the numbers. Because money doesn't just move numbers, it moves your mind. It can either cloud your decisions or clarify your direction. So what does it look like to lead with financial clarity? First, visibility. You cannot master what you refuse to see. Know your numbers, not just top-line revenue, but burn rate, fixed costs, variable exposures, debt ratio. Track every dollar like it's carrying intel about your future, because it is. Second, discipline. Live below your ego. If your lifestyle is expanding faster than your wisdom, you're not growing, you're inflating. Don't let mood dictate money. The best financial decisions are usually the least exciting ones. The most powerful sentence in money management is also the most boring. Let's wait. Third, alignment. If your spending doesn't reflect your values, neither will your life. Every dollar you release tells a story about what matters to you. Write the right story. Stop buying to prove. Start building to last. The world doesn't need more men who look rich and feel trapped. It needs men who move with calm, own their choices, and build quietly. This doesn't mean you live small. It means you live on purpose. The Stoics didn't hate wealth. They simply refused to be enslaved by it. They understood that prosperity without principle is still a prison. But when money serves mission, when it's managed with clarity, character, and constraint, it becomes something more than currency. It becomes a tool of liberation. So ask yourself honestly, are you leading your money? Or is your money leading your mood? Are you buying freedom or trading it for the illusion of success? You don't need to be a minimalist, but you do need to be intentional. Because when you control your money, you don't just make better investments, you make better decisions, you sleep better, you negotiate from a place of strength, you stop operating from fear, you lead without the scent of desperation. And when the market shifts, when the next recession hits, when funding slows, when clients pull back, you'll be one of the few who aren't scrambling. You'll be ready. Not because you predicted it, but because you were never exposed to begin with. That's financial power. Quiet, private, unshakable. It doesn't show on your wrist. It shows in how calmly you walk into a storm, and how little of yourself you need to prove. The kind of power that no one sees until they realize they can't move you. Your outer empire begins with inner order. Let me leave you with this. Everything you've built, your business, your influence, your reputation, stands on a foundation you can't outsource. The way you govern yourself. Because no matter how strong your company looks on the outside, no matter how much money flows, how polished the branding appears, if there is disorder inside you, it will show. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually the cracks reach the surface. That's why the Stoics never started with conquest. They started with character. Not with expansion, but with examination. They understood the real empire isn't what the world sees, it's what you master when no one's watching. Control your mouth, and you control the stories people tell about you. Control your mind, and you reclaim clarity in the middle of chaos. Control your mood, and you shape the emotional landscape of your team, your family, your future. Control your money, and you lead from strength, not from scarcity. Most people wait until things fall apart to get serious about inner order. But you've made it this far, which means you're not like most people. You know the real work is invisible, quiet, daily, stoic. So here's the truth. You don't need another goal. You need a governing philosophy, a system of discipline that anchors you no matter how loud the world gets. That's what you've just heard. 4 disciplines, 1 foundation. Mouth, mind, mood, money. Master these, and you don't just survive pressure. You become the one who commands through it. If this message spoke to something inside you, if even one part of this resonated, don't just walk away. Carry it, share it, lead with it. If you've come this far, comment, command restored. Below, let's see who's reclaiming their ground silently. Because this isn't just content, it's a call. And the men who answer it aren't just changing themselves, they're helping create a culture where clarity replaces chaos, where men who are tired of being reactive, tired of scrambling, tired of being emotionally hijacked, finally find a standard to rise to. And if you want more of that, this space is here for you. Subscribe, not for noise, but for direction. Not just to grow alone, but to grow with a community of men building in silence, leading with strength, and anchoring their lives in stoic command. Because when you do that, you're not just upgrading your life, you're helping reshape what leadership looks like for every man watching.